Prime Minister, have you ever raised the prospect of Australian troops on the ground in Iraq with our military officials?
No. We've had lots of discussions on lots of different subjects, but it's been absolutely crystal clear from the beginning that there was no plans to put Australian combat troops on the ground. I read an article in the paper this morning, and I must say I thought it was absolutely fanciful. And I rang the Chief of the Defence Force to ask him about it, and he's as mystified by it as I am.
So you never suggested it to any military officials?
Look, we have lots of discussions about lots of things all the time, but the idea that I would propose a unilateral dispatch of a large Australian force to another country is just fanciful, simply fanciful.
So you didn't suggest it at any time with any military officials, unilateral action?
The story is false. It is false, it is fanciful. I've spoken to the Chief of the Defence Force about it, and he is as mystified by this as I am.
Why won't you say that you didn't have that conversation at all then?
Look, the story, as reported, is false. It is false. I have lots of conversations with lots of people at lots of different times, but the idea there was a meeting in late November where I formally asked for advice and formally suggested that a large Australian force should go unilaterally to Iraq is just wrong. Just wrong. What I am very happy to talk about, though, is what we actually are doing in Iraq. And what we're doing in Iraq is operating with the full support of the Iraqi government in conjunction with our partners and allies to disrupt and degrade the Islamist death cult. Now, we sent our forces to Iraq. There's up to 200 special forces there on an advise and assist mission with the Iraqi special forces. There's an air contingent involving at the moment 6 Super Hornet strike fighters, an AWAC aircraft, a refuelling aircraft, and they are doing excellent work. I think they've flown so far some 550 combat missions over Iraq, and they are doing very good work. That's the work that we are doing in Iraq. It's good work, and we will continue to stand with our allies and the people of Iraq to fight this death cult, which has produced a new dark age in much of northern Iraq and Syria.
So, Prime Minister, can you rule out ever sending troops into Iraq unilaterally?
Australia does not act unilaterally in the Middle East. We do not act unilaterally in the Middle East. We work with our partners and allies to meet threats to our vital national interests and to the vital national interests of our friends and partners. That's what we do. Nope, absolutely not. As I said, the story that I read today was fanciful, absolutely fanciful. I rang the CDF, as you'd expect, because if any such discussions had ever taken place, surely they would have taken place with the CDF, and he is as mystified by this as I am. And I note that apparently there was no attempt made to contact him, and certainly there was no attempt made to raise with my office this issue of 3,500 soldiers being unilaterally committed to Iraq.
So in those many conversations you had with many people, that was never raised?
This idea that Australia would unilaterally send a very large contingent to Iraq without the consent of the Iraqi government, without the cooperation of our allies, is just nonsense.
Prime Minister, did you ever have that conversation?
The conversation, or the advice, or the briefing, which was reported in the paper today, is simply false. And if I may say so, there is a terrible tendency right now on the part of journalists to pick up rumour, to exaggerate it, and then publish it as fact. Now, there's quite a bit of stuff in the paper today which is simply fanciful. Absolutely, utterly, simply fanciful. I know how my government works. I know how meetings are conducted. I know who says what to whom in these meetings, and there is a lot of material in the paper today which is fictitious.
Well, let's be absolutely clear, you've never suggested that unilateral action.
Absolutely. How often do I have to say it? The story in the paper today is simply false. It is fanciful. I think it's fanciful. When I rang the CDF to ask him if he had any idea what this might all be about, it was as much a mystery to him as it is to me.